not sure we're on. Yep, we are.
Hello, this is Phil Bridges with Straight Arrow Repair, and it has been Straight Arrow Repair for 31 years, a long, long time. And one of the discussions that we got into last time was estimating metal roofs on homes, particularly mobile homes, which seems to be something that's not as easily available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a history of how I came up with the methods that I use, and then you can take it's an evolution of how I came to the situation where I'm doing it now, and I still do all the different ones if somebody wants it. So I'm going to talk to you about the first time that I did it all the way to what I'm doing now and how I got there. And we're going to use a whiteboard in just a minute. So it would have to start now, and I think we do the same live on YouTube at 8 p.m. on Wednesday, Central Standard Time. And I think I said 31 years ago is when I started doing the first metal roof over a mobile home. And that's not really true. It's more than 31 years ago. It was in the 80s before I ever got over to Florida and married the first woman that I thought I was going to be with forever. So,
you mean the same one that got her hair caught in a sander?
Right. So in the 80s, I was hanging out with a bunch of guys that were metal stud, drywall, acoustical ceiling, Rayco systems, core boards, synthetics, all those things. I was doing commercial, and I thought the world I had the tiger by the tail. And a bunch of these three of these guys were saying, "Hey, you want to come with us this weekend? We're going to frame up a metal roof over a mobile home, and that way it'll have a peaked roof." And I was like, "Yeah, sounds kind of neat. Why don't I'll go with you." "Yeah, where is it at?" "Oh, we'll meet us at this store on da-da-da." And it was north of Austin, Texas. Kind of warm in August, about this time of year. It was pretty hot. And so we're going to do it on Saturday morning. And they said, "Oh, let's not make it early. Meet us there at 9:30. So yeah, pretty much everybody showed up on time. And that was really late because we start at 7. That means you're rolled, your cord out, your screw gun, your pouches are on, you're on the site, and you're working at 7. So this was like 2.5 hours later, and everybody's kind of halfway hung over and all those things. But we're all there. We're doing what we said we do, which is unusual. Usually 1 out of 4, something might have happened to them that Friday night, but it didn't work out that way. We all went to this place, and I don't even know whose house it was, whose relative, whose friend, I don't know. I was just there doing it hanging out with the guys. When we got there, it was a rounded roof mobile home, single wide, probably 60 foot long, wasn't terrible long, wasn't wide, was probably a 14 or 15 wide, 14 I would say. And we framed up a peak over this rounded roof out of what we called then spaghetti stud, which is 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and they had 10-foot length. So, but that stuff was 25 gauge. It was nothing for 4 guys. That's what they did all the time. And so we framed it up, and so we started probably about 10 o'clock, and we framed it up probably by 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and with supports and everything. And I'll do a marker of that here in a minute. And then we stripped it with drywall channel, and we started putting the metal roofing. That was just galvanized then. And I don't know where they got any of these materials. I don't know what they were stolen. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. I just was involved with it. So we did probably a little more than half of the roof was fastened to the metal stud, and it was getting close to the 5 o'clock. We were rolling. I mean, we were rolling with 4 guys. You can imagine, and so we were standing between the metal, and it was going. So the next weekend, they didn't even bother to tell me, and I was probably busy with something else my own way. I just hanging out with the guys. Not every weekend. I was never one to hang out with just anybody, the guys all the time. I just didn't do that. But I had this experience that I had with me. So I moved to Florida years later. I lived in Florida for quite a while. Did a lot more commercial metal stud. I did that until I got to I was in what I thought was the end of my relationship, and I moved from Florida to here in Northwest Arkansas. So when I was here, there was like, man, we got a problem with this roof. It's just all rusted out on this mobile home, and we don't know what to do. I said, well, in Texas many years ago, and this was 31 years ago that I'm talking about, we built a metal roof over top of a mobile home. You think you could do that again? Said, yeah, but I don't know where to get the materials around here. What kind of materials you talking about? I might know where it is. And no, they didn't. We had to find out who were the metal stud suppliers in this area, and all the other materials I was familiar with. It took a bit to find in 31 years ago in this area near Rogers and Bentonville. Now it's not nowhere near as hard. Those materials are everywhere. So at this point, I'm going to take you to the whiteboard, and I'm going to show you what I was doing. Here we go. And believe me, this is all related as to why I do it like I am.
Okay, that's got the whiteboard, but it doesn't really have you.
Well, who wants me anyway?
Let me see. Okay, that's got you and the white. No.
We're going to get better at this, huh? By the way, on YouTube, this would be our 50th live stream.
Okay, you've got whiteboard to about here.
So I got to do all over here, or all the way over here?
All over here.
From here. Okay. How about this? I'll just put that there.
Yeah, you need to be on the other side of that.
All right. So on a rounded roof mobile home, let's just do a rough.
I forgot to buy markers.
It's like so. And this house had not been maintained, no coating on it, nothing, just was a lot of rust. It was trying to pull apart at the seams. And so it's like, hey, what'd you do after that? Well, first of all, let's just frame it up. And so what I did was I used 3 5/8 lightweight, which would be 25 gauge. It would be that way. Metal stud, hollow metal. Okay, so it's basically sort of like a U shape. To look at from the end, either end, it'd be U shaped and have a little curl in. What is that for? One's different than the other. You can lock them one into the other and make a solid. It's not something that you're going to do. It's more of a specific situation where you want to make the 25 gauge stronger. But anyway, it has one flat side and then an open side. So what I was doing was I would hang it over 6 inches or so on each side and then go all the way up to the peak, which in this case was 10-foot piece. And I cut it to whatever I needed to get to the peak. And they lapped over, and I put screws in. I cut one side of this so the other one go into and make a peak at the corner right here and screw it. I knew exactly, I measure back 5 inches or something, and I know one can lay into the other. And I did it every 2 feet. So this would be the length of the home. Every 2 feet. One here, 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 here. This would be the length of the home. Every 2 feet. One here, 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 here. And I didn't even put them up. Here, 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 and all the way down. I just left them laying there. Okay. Then I built the one on the one end, and then I built the one on the other end. Then I put a string line between those corners because I wanted the roof line to be straight. So I just raised them up and then fastened them. Now, when I got rolling on these, I didn't have to make them flat here. So I could just have one turned one way, one turned the other so that they both were flat to flat. Okay. And I made a peak all the way through. And then I would come back in and drop a brace here at 3 foot, one in the center, and then another one at 3 foot or 4 foot, and brace it up. Now that thing's really, really strong, but it still kind of needs some support. So now we got all these going connected like this. We still got to fasten the metal roof to it. All right, so what I was used to using all those years was what is called DWC, which is actually drywall channel. So you can get DWC in different heights, but most of the time it's like a 1/2 inch, 3/4 lip, and then up, and then across 1 1/4 inch, and then down, and then over. And it's 10 foot long. 10 foot long, okay? And then you fasten your screws through here, and then you put your metal roof on that. So I did that every 2 feet also. One here on the end, 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot, and then up here, whatever it falls out near the top, okay? All the way down. 2 foot, 4 foot, 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot, 9. All right. Now I have something I can fasten to. I go up with that metal, and now I've extended the metal maybe 1 inch past, 1/2 inch, and all the way up to here. So we did it, and everybody's like, wow, that worked out really well.
When did you do this roof? What year was it?
94. First year I was here, 1994. So I can't even remember the names of the guys that I did it with in the 80s. But we were using green metal on this. The customer actually wanted black, but at the time you couldn't get black. It was like, what, black? So that's what we did. Now, all this metal stud, it has holes in it every 2 feet, so that if you're standing up a wall and you wanted it to not be wobbly, you could put black iron through and stiffen it up. You can do the same thing, or you can run electrical pipe through it, plumbing through it, any number of things through it to get through a wall without having to drill holes. The holes are already there. But anyway, it's very lightweight, enough so that you could carry a bundle of 10 8-footers under each arm. So maybe 30 pounds each. It's more about being awkward. So you're carrying 20 of them, and it's like 60 pounds. It's still that way now. So that's what we were doing. And I think I did that probably 2 or 3 times. It was quite the novelty. Nobody in this area was doing anything close to that. So that was growing up and learning, hey, look at there, I can do something. There's a lot of people that I was involved with, like, wow, I didn't even know you could do that. So how did we come up with how much we needed? Well, say this was a 48 foot home, and it was 16 wide. By the way, whenever you have a 16-foot wide, they say a 16 wide mobile home, they count the little jelly jar light fixtures on the outside, all the way out here. When they count the length, they count the tip of the tongue. If you have a 70-footer, I know you have a 67-footer because there's 3 foot of tongue. I don't know if you know that. So it's not a true 16 wide. It would be less because of whatever the 3 or 4 inches of the light fixture on both sides, it'd be 15'2" on the outside. If you're measuring on the inside, it's even less than that. So whenever you're measuring, you need to measure the actual box width and length. All right. So 48 on 2 foot centers, you're going to start with 1 and then divide 48 by 2 would take you to 24. So you need 25 of these at 2 foot centers on each side. So that's 50. This one's tired already. 50, 50. And I always added a few, so I'm going to say 60. Plus the braces. So you're going to need 1 on each one of these. All right. So I would say 50 and 24, so that'd be 75. And then we're going to add a little bit. We'll just do 90. I always added a little bit. And if we had left over, that's okay. Now, is that all you need? No. You estimate now you need the track. The track is similar to the metal stud, not as high. And it's just like so. That'll allow the metal stud to fit inside that track. Where did I put the track? Right here on the end. Or right here, rather. Okay? So, you need track. How much? It's in 10-foot lengths. Always 10-foot lengths. You have to order a special to be anything different. 10-foot lengths. All right. We have 48. Let's just say 50 on this side, 50 on this side. You need 100 pieces of track. That's usually what you get, or 100 feet of track. So that would be 10 pieces. 1 bundle. Well, you don't want to be short, but you don't want to order a whole nother bundle. So you might order just 12 of 1 bundle and then 2 more. All right. That way you can make a mistake. I always added, because if you make a mistake, it's a long ways back to get more material, if they have it. So now we're at the 100 and then 12 track. What else? DWC. It only comes in 10-foot lengths unless you pay for it to be different. So how much you need? Well, again, just like the track, you're going to need, they're in 10-foot lengths, you're going to need 5 for a run. And how many runs? Okay, so we have 1 on the outside edge, 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot, and then 9 probably. It's not really 9, 8'6" or something like that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 per side. So that would be 12. 12 runs of 5. 12 times 5 is 60. 60 plus you need to add some extra. So you would say I would just do 70. 70 DWC. All this is for a 48-foot home. Now, how much metal roofing will you need? Well, you're going to measure the length from the end of your track all the way up to the peak. You don't have to go all the way to the peak. I'd stay back a little bit. I learned early that you get all the way to the very peak, one bumps into the other, and it's just a nuisance. So pull back a little bit. And then say it was 8'6" from the edge of here to here, or 9 foot. You measure that, you count that 9 foot, and then you're going to have 9 foot lengths. All right. How many 9 foot lengths? Well, you got 48-foot home. You divide that by 3, because that's the width of the panel. 3 foot into 48, that'd be 16 panels per side. So that times 2 is 32. Is that enough? No, I add 2 more. So we need 34 panels at 9 foot. 34 at 9 foot. Is that enough? No, you need screws. And they'll usually calculate how many bags of screws you need if you're doing it on 2 foot centers. What kind of screws do you need? Back then it was 1 inch, but now I would say 1.5 inches. In this case, it was metal to metal because you were screwing through metal into metal, but 1.5 inches metal to metal. And they'll tell you how many you need on 2 foot centers to fasten all that. But you always get a little extra. Probably going to be about 5 bags, something like that. They'll tell you. Is that all? No, it's not all. Now we have a ridge cap. Ridge cap comes in 10 foot lengths unless you order it different. Ridge cap, the profile looks like, to look at the end of it, it goes about like 1.5 inches, then it goes over, and then that's not really right. Let's see here. It goes on the very peak. It lays on both sides, so it goes like so, up, and then over to the peak, and then back down, and then here, and then over like so, kind of tilted. But
you're right on the edge of your view.
Right. So that ridge cap will be the lowest profile you can get. It's not flat, but it's very, very low. It's like a 1 to 12 ratio. It's a 12 to 1, peak, most likely. So how many will you need? You have 48. We'll just round it up to 50, and they're on 10 foot lengths. You need 5, but don't get 5, get 6. 6 ridge cap. All right. What else do you need? If you're doing this type, you need the framing screws, or the what in the trades would call panheads. Panheads. The screws that you use to fasten the metal is what you use to fasten the ridge cap. The ridge cap runs right over, covers the middle, and there's still more. But anyway, the panheads are going to be 2 or 3 per fasten. These supports down here, all I did was cut them a little bit longer and then run a flap over, and then I can screw the panheads right into the metal roof. Okay? That's what we did. So, is there more? Yes, there is one more thing. On this ridge cap, whenever the metal roof goes under it, that metal roof is not flat. It has ribs in it, like so. Goes over 9 inches, up and over. Goes over 9 inches, up and over. I think I'm way on the other side. Let me do it here. End, 9 inches, over. They got the ribs. That's when you're looking at the end of it. All right? And there's more than that. When you put your ridge cap, it sits right across the top of those ribs, and you're fastening into those ribs. All right? You need to fill that in. Why? Because wind will blow the driving rain up and over and drop down inside here, and then you got leaks all over again. So what you need to fill that is called foam closure. Foam closure. All right. With that foam closure, it sets, let's see if I can draw what foam closure looks like. And it sits on top of those ribs, and it looks something like this. It has a male end to fasten into the female, and then it goes over the rib and back, fills in that gap, goes over the rib and fills in that gap, so like that. And on the other side, other end, it'll have a female side. All right. That it goes over the 3-foot section. And you need as many of these as you do roofing panels. And we were talking about the roofing panels here being 34, so you need 34 of these foam closures that are over closures. They go over the metal, not under the metal. All right? Over the metal. That is underneath that ridge cap right there. Is that all you need? That will get you a complete metal roof. But one of the things I learned early on, within the first 3, is that there's something missing. And that was, there was no insulation. I really didn't understand the importance other than you were adding insulation, and then that would make it resist the heat more and maybe hold the heat in that roof more. I was like, yeah, I could see where you put the insulation. At that time we were like, yeah, we need to get some insulation on it, or particularly me. So what did I do? I was like, hey, what if we just do, 3/4 foam? What does that? So that is the stuff that's readily available at all your big box stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, all that. It is a 4x8 sheet, 4x8 sheet of foam. It can be just foam, white foam, cellular looking, or it can be that blue foam, or it can be foil faced. You can use any of those. It behooves you to make it 3/4. Why? Because at that time the DWC was 3/4. Okay, up here, and it would be the height of the DWC, and I would cut it to fit in between those 2-foot centers. Cut it, so I take a 4x8 and cut it in half, and it'd be 2 foot. Well, it'd be actually 22 inches, 22-inch pieces, stuff like that, so it'd fit in between the foam. Now this stuff likes to blow around, so you're going to be chasing it if the wind blows. You don't want to get too far ahead of your putting the metal on. But one thing I learned early on is that when you put that foam in there in between the DWC, it made the metal roof stronger. When you walked on it, it didn't crunch every time you tried to step on a rib. It didn't fold. You didn't have to worry about it, because now that added little bit of strength underneath that roof made it stronger. Imagine that. I was like, wow, that's a really good idea. That worked out for more than one reason. But guess what? It was another reason. Another reason. What was that reason? Well, whenever you have any kind of roofing material on this peak, the temperature outside might be 100, but it's not going to be 100 underneath that roof. It's going to be like maybe 90, maybe 85, maybe even cooler than that if it's in the early before noon or something. So what happens when you have 100 outside and 80 inside? Condensation. Condensation. How is that a problem? Well, that water will run down that metal roof and drop wherever it wants to. And guess what? Now you got a leaking roof again. Even though you got a totally sealed roof, you have a leaking roof again because of condensation. Condensation. So we started getting better at this. Like, hey, I like this whole arrangement. I probably did 20 of these. So with the 20 of them that I did, I kept getting a little bit smarter, a little bit smarter. I'm like, hey, I want to try this. One of the things that happened was man, I can't remember the name of that type of mobile home, but there's 2 or 3 different styles other than a rounded roof, but that had a rounded roof, but it had 2 levels. It dropped down like so and go like, and then you have like a, oh, we're trying to make it fancy where you step up into the kitchen, it's higher, or just made the roof higher, the same size, same height floor, but anyway, they would want a roof too. Like, how do we do that? So what I started doing was putting 2-foot center metal stud standing straight up, and then make this track come across the top of them all. And that was what in the trades we would call a pony wall or a knee wall. And that would be supported with braces running diagonally down. All right. And then I could put my rafters hanging off over the top of each one of these on 2-foot centers, fastened to that track on top. If you wanted to, you could put a 2x on there. Makes yourself feel better if you want to, but it didn't make much difference. And when I say that, in this area, I think the statistics are that we get 4 90-mile-an-hour episodes every 3 years. And then we have tornadoes. We have a lot of storms that are over 60-mile-an-hour winds, particularly on hilltops. So I've not had but one roof get tore up by high wind, and that was a tornado. And I put it back together. And it didn't take very long. It didn't even take half a day for me to put it all back together once I had the materials there. So anyway, this was a different roof. They also make one that the roof, I want to say township or something like that. The roof goes past a little bit and then goes down. But with the same idea, you're going to end up building a pony wall to get it all the roof line to be the same. And then you would cover this with the DWC then, and then you could hang panels of metal, and then you put J channel down here and J channel up here to dress it up, or maybe just a Z channel or anything to cover up the top edge if you wanted to. But everybody was so happy that there was an option for that roof to do that. And so that's what I did for probably 10 years. And I did a lot of them. That's with the rounded roof. So now we're going to change it. I was still doing rounded roofs, but we're going to change it to the other style, which is the metal roof that is peaked on. Well, it's not that steep. Okay. Mobile home with a peaked roof, and it's metal. All right. Well, I was like, well, we don't have to do all the bracing up and everything, so that saved them some money. What do? Well, I would hang the metal stud up or past that 6 inches that I needed, and then I would just run it up to the peak here and do the same thing from this side. And every 2 feet all the way through. Again, if it's 48, we'd have the same numbers. But now I didn't have the braces that I was showing you. No braces, because we're fastening directly into that roof. Okay? And then we would strip it with the DWC, the same amount, the same numbers, the same metal length. Okay? You measure it, the same amount of ridge cap, the same amount of closure, same amount of metal screws to hold it. The only thing that changes is you're not putting the braces in on that. Okay, you're not putting the braces in. So one of the houses was like, hey, would you do it? We saw you do a roof over here on, half a block away. Would you consider doing something even more energy efficient? I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? Well, could you put more foam? So before I put the DWC on, we bought some foam that was 3 inches thick, and I don't even remember where we got it. I was working with my uncle on that one. and we pushed it in between on 2-foot centers. We pushed it in between, and then we'd put the DWC over it. And they said that it was pretty hot then too. They said they literally could feel it inside the house as we were going along putting the foam in. We being mostly me. Anyway, we put all that foam in. It kind of made it weird to, to stand on. It was just really weird because now you're having to go back over and with that foam 3 inches thick, and you're having to put the DWC on. It was really, really awkward, but we did it. And then what I was doing was, by the way, whenever I did the rounded roof, and this is my border, so whenever I did the rounded roof or the peaked roof, those metal studs were fastened with screws right into the wood that's right on that edge. Okay. And when I say 2-inch screws, 2.5, stuff like that, 3-inch if you want to, but it didn't need that much. 1.5 inch would probably have been enough, but every one of those things were fastened with 1 or 2 screws. All right. Now, it changed the cost big time. Big time. That 3-inch foam was really hard to come by. It was expensive. Anything that's hard to come by is expensive. But we did a 6-8 inch overhang on that. Pretty far. Put on, and so I was getting fancier with it. What I could do then was order. I had a pattern made. I could order a flange, then over like this, and then a flange up, and I'd buy that metal to close off this area here. Now I could do that at an angle, or I could have it bent so that it comes out straight across. And I'd put the flange down so I could put a screw into it here. Now, is that all I did? No. If you can put rake and corner on this outside edge before you put the metal on, and now you don't have any gaps other than the ribs themselves. It kind of, if you were wanting to do soffit right here, you would do that first and fasten into it to that track, and then you bring your rake and corner, and you put your fascia up and your rake and corner over. So yes, you can get it to making pretty close to it looking like a home, or at least it's heading that direction. Again, you're dealing with 10-foot lengths, and whatever length of home, you add yourself some. So I was getting pretty fancy, pretty elaborate. The price of it was getting more expensive. It was taking more time. You weren't able to do it in one day. It was going to take 2 days, even if I had help. But I was doing it that way until I think, and almost always on single wide mobile homes. I don't think I ever did a double wide with it framed up that way. No, I'm pretty sure I didn't. But what happened was this older guy, and I want to say he was probably in his late 50s. He's like, I'm really broke. I can't afford all that. Can you not come up with a way on my rounded roof home that I can have, because my home, this thing is leaking like a sieve, and I ain't going to have nothing to live in. And I'm going to have to retire early. As soon as I hit 62, I got to have a home. Well, I was like, well, I've been playing around with an idea. If you don't mind, we'll try to bend a piece of metal all the way over from one side to the other. He says, have you done that before? I was like, no. I said, but I'd like to try it on your job. That would save you a lot of money. And he goes, so how's it going to be held? Well, I'm going to put DWC every 2-foot center, and then I'm just going to fasten those straight into the rafters, which are not always on 2-foot centers, but should be. And then I'm going to bend that metal 20. The metal is 20. Let's see, what gauge is that? The metal roofing, the lighter metal roofing is 25 gauge, I believe, also. So I was like, man, I did not have any confidence that I could do it. As I recall, I had some metal that was left over from other jobs. I had 2 different colors of green, and I had to cut it to length. And so what I did was I hung it over, say his mobile home was right there, and I just bent that metal after I fastened all the DWC with drywall screws through the lip of that DWC, through that into the rafters, okay? And then I'm screwing down this metal in the top of the DWC. And I was like, man, I don't know if this metal will bend. And sure enough, did. It bent. It didn't even, I was worried the whole job that it was going to bend. It did not. And so I did all that, and I had to cut. On that job, I learned that I could do that rounded roof, just bending the metal on the DWC. I couldn't fasten directly to the roof because I had to get to those areas that did not have a rafter, and so I was doing the DWC and then screwing to the DWC. I also learned that your plumbing vents, which on the peaked roof or on a 3 5/8, you didn't have to go through the roof. You could just leave it underneath, because all it was doing was when the water moves in, and you run a sink or something, the water goes through that trap. You've got to push the air back, and then it comes back when you get through running. That's all that plumbing vent does. It doesn't need constant air movement. It does get rid of the sewer smell. So if you're moving water into your septic tank, it's the septic tank won't be relieving air, that kind of smell, which is what your trap is for, to keep that air from coming up through and into your sink. And the same with your roof vents. You're going to end up needing to have it so where it could do anything. But now here I am on this roof, and I'm like really trying to make it happen. I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to cut it off flush with the roof and leave it underneath the DWC, which is 3/4 of an inch high, and see if that works. This guy's willing to work with me. So the only thing I had to mess with is he had a gas heater and a gas water heater. And I think he had a vent in each bathroom, a vent. So I had 4 of those. And at that time, I'd been used to seeing that. So I had roof jacks, which you can buy the roof jacks, by the way, at your same metal building supplier. And they'll be a square bottom with aluminum that you can screw the screws into it, but it's actually round in the center, and it has different layers that keeps getting smaller and smaller. So you just figure out what size your pipe is. You just cut out that section, slide it over real tight, and that if you go on over a rib, that this aluminum allows you to form it over, and so you screw into that aluminum after you bend it over around it, and then you seal it. Now I learned early on using the engineered caulking that was what they said was the thing to use was this $7-8 then was an expensive caulking, and that will be what we'll let you have your warranty with. And I'm like, okay. So I use it, and it does the same thing every caulking will do. It will shrink, and then you will have a leak. You will have to go over it once it's already shrunk and do it again, and then you might not have a leak for a while. Most of your caulking doesn't hold up well in the weather, the sun. It deteriorates and you can just peel it off after a while. But mind you, they have the size for the fireplaces, the size for the heaters, and the size for your vents. And they're all, you can get them heat resistant. All that is at your metal building supplier. And I'm hearing Amazon has metal. So I haven't ordered from Amazon yet. I don't know how competitive their price is. I don't know anything about the quality. If I do find out, I will let you know. So I did all this for this guy, and he goes, okay, I'll try to get with you in a couple of weeks, like I said, and I'll pay you. Well, he never did pay me. But he did pay me in the fact that I got to experiment and learn that I could do that, because now I had a metal roof plan. I can just fasten that at that point, the DWC, which was a galvanized metal, I can fasten that to the roof directly, and I don't need to build a peak, or I can just bend the metal and it sheds the water. So what else happened along the way? Oh, by the way, I was putting the foam in there too. What else happened? Well, I kept having problems finding this DWC because the area is in the top 15 fastest growing for as long as I've been here, 30 years. It's in the top 15 fastest growing areas in the United States all that time. So commercial metal stud and DWC quite often is in shortage, and you didn't want to wait. So I kind of came up with, hey, why don't we just buy 1x4s? And that gives me even more room to fasten to. So I started doing 1x4s on 2-foot centers on that roof. This is not proportioned. And I fastened through the 1x4, through the metal roof, into the rafters. You can stand on both sides of the rafters, and you can figure out what you need. So now I'm buying the 1x4s from Lowe's and all that for about the same price as the length of DWC. Quite often the 8-footers were more plentiful. And 10-footers and 12-footers, all that stuff was more expensive per the foot. So I pretty much always stayed at 8-foot lengths. So now you're dividing your 48 foot by 8 foot, but what we had 12 rows. You just got to divide 8 foot into 48 would be 6, all right, and times however many rows. 2 foot, 4 foot, 6 foot, 8 foot. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 rows times 6, 68 foot 1x4s instead of the DWC. Is that all I learned? No. I started using something that there's a company over here called National. They're out of business now. But they had some stuff called perimeter foam. Why do I mention it? Because it was 2 foot by 8 foot. What was it used for? It was meant to be, you take tar and you wipe on a block wall, and then you can put this perimeter foam on, so you literally give the outside of that wall some foam insulation and buffer from the dirt getting to that temperature changing inside the basement.
On the metal roofing and on Amazon, this 20 pieces, 99 foot grade galvanized is $1.50 a square foot.
That's about half price. I don't know what the delivery is, but
free delivery.
Free delivery. Ooh. All right, so you might check out Amazon for a price. I think that's a fair price.
Yeah, that I was honestly thinking that when I looked at it.
I don't know. I have to look and see that. It's right now per foot. It is $3, so that's $1 a foot. No, it's not that competitive. So I have to check. Everything keeps going up. It may be up there the same price as what you just heard, which is $1.50 would be $4.50 per foot. Anyway, What
$1.50 a square foot would be $4.50 a foot.
you're going across 3 feet.
Oh, okay.
So what else did I learn? Well, I was trying to figure out ways to save money, and these guys come up to me. It's like, hey, have you seen this new stuff called Prodex? Yes, last night I couldn't remember the name. That's like, no, it is a roll that's like 4 foot wide, 250 square feet per roll. You just roll it out, and it has double stick tape on one side where you can just stick one side to the other and just run full the length of your. I was like, whoa, I'll have to try that. So I started doing that using Prodex, and I ain't never looked back. I never went back to any of that foam. I'm not saying you can't do it or it's a bad way to do it. It is not.
On that Prodex, we actually use that a lot.
I use it for a lot of stuff.
We used it in our brooder room.
Yes. So I've used it. It's rated. It's a R9 rating, and it's a 1/4 inch thick. It's foil face both sides. What is the advantage of Prodex? I did not know this particular advantage, but a gentleman called up and he said that Prodex is one of the few of all the manufactured stuff that is not flammable. Okay. This Prodex does not burn, he said. I did not try. I think I did put a torch to it and didn't catch on fire. But he said all that stuff you buy at Lowe's and Home Depot and all those, if you put a flame to those, they catch up like paper. They will burn. And he kind of learned it because he was putting it inside of his house rafters to stop the heat from coming through the roof. You already have insulation in your ceiling, but he was putting insulation in the roof to keep the heat from getting into the top of the house. And he said Prodex was the only one that wasn't flammable. Does that mean you need to worry about that with a metal roof on a mobile home? No, you don't, because once this stuff is on fire on a mobile home, you don't need to worry about that. You need to worry about everything in that house is burning down. So they what they call it normally is a double bubble. And it comes in, you need to ask how much square footage you need. But let's say this same, now we're going to say is 16 by 48. So we're going to multiply 16 times 48. That's 480. And 6 times 8, 6 times 4, 16, 18, 6, 12. That's not right. This is 80. So 480 and then 6 times 48, 6 would be 50. 6 times 50 is 300 minus 6. 6 minus 12. It'd be like 700 square feet, something like that. So you're going to need 3 rolls. 3 rolls at 250 square feet per roll. I'm getting tired at 10 o'clock. I got to wake up a little bit. 250 square feet, you're going to end up with 3 rolls you're going to have left over.
We could move the time to 9.
No. We'll stay with it. Right. I'm just, so now I'm using Prodex, which is actually cheaper and easier to deal with. Don't get me wrong, this stuff will blow all over the county too. So you want to start.
You got to flip your camera, bro. It's backwards.
Yeah, I got to flip. There's a lot to learn yet. I have been learning for all my life, and I'm still learning. Thank you. So we'll have to do better on that. The next I want to do is probably estimating on how to do it on a regular house and a double wide. So we'll fix that. Anyway, So I started using Prodex or Double Bubble instead of foam from the stores, which made it easier to transport. 3 rolls of that you could fit in the back of a Cadillac or something, back seat, So that improved things quite a bit. Again, eliminated the leaks that I would normally have from condensation. I had to learn the hard way. I was like, hey, when I do a metal roof, I always put foam in it. Well, this guy was like, hey, let's save some money and let's not put the foam in. So I put this metal roof on this home, but I had done a big addition on it. And there was an opening right there, pretty good size opening proportionally. And it kept leaking right there at the beam that I put across. I was like, man, I can't figure it out. So I went up there and sealed that roof. And he went up there and did a sloppy job, but he sealed that roof. He didn't care. It was on the backside. Nobody cared. Nobody going to see that, he said. It wouldn't quit leaking. You know what it was? We didn't put insulation and had condensation. It would slide down that roof into that addition. And on top of the fact it was dropping into the 1x4s that I had put on that roof. That's one of those ones where I learned, put the insulation. So whenever you see somebody doing a metal roof or a rubber roof, that rubber sits right on top. What they're doing is they're putting a 2x4 on 2-foot centers all the way across, and then they're putting OSB on that, and then they're gluing the rubber to that. But you see this difference right here, the temperature here and the temperature here? That's going to be condensation. There's going to be condensation there. Probably what will happen in 10 years or so, the particle board, the OSB will probably rot out. I don't know that for a fact because I haven't taken one of those apart, and I don't wish anybody ill will, but I tell you this, I just got through seeing a roof on a building, a rubber roof on a building, rounded commercial building. They buffed it with a buffer, which was crazy. It's like 20 foot high. It's off the sides, and cleaned it all up. It was white. And then they put little bitty patches. They looked like somebody shot it with a machine gun. Little black patches on it. And then they coated the whole thing again. I guarantee you, even though this rubber roofing they're saying is going to hold for 50 years, it wasn't even 20. Promise you. So I don't have faith in the rubber roofing like a lot of people do. And if you're going to do it, you need to have some insulation in there. My experience is, son, yeah, I can be wrong. When I stop making mistakes, I'll be dead. I just try not to make a lot of them. And I try to learn by the mistakes that I make. So consider, whenever you're doing these methods, consider putting some kind of insulation in. Hopefully that will help somebody and you won't have all that mystery leaks and spots on the roof. Now, when it comes to those penetrations that I was telling you about, I did all the engineered, expensive caulking, but I end up going back to the old methods and carried the warranty myself. What I end up doing? Well, I end up putting tar all the way around and sealed it all up. Does that mean that it will not leak? It will. It will. That's the one place if your penetrations are going to be where you have maintenance. But there's nothing that you make that doesn't have maintenance, including relationships. Everything has maintenance. So, but I didn't have leaks anymore. I didn't have shrinking caulk. That didn't sound right. She's over there laughing. It's like I have a problem. No, I don't. So it's not a problem anymore. Now I started having ragged edge, and how do I make that look better? So what I started doing is if I knew I had that roof jack and I was going to put the tar on it, what I would do is take tape, like masking tape, all the way around, and then just wipe that tar all the way over to that masking tape, and then I'd pull that tape up, and it made it look like it's a professional square, sharp edges. Pull the tape up, put it into a box, and away you go. So that was another one that I learned. I know that I'm not resisting technology, and I can tell you this: everything that is caulking it shrinks, and then you have holes, little holes, and those holes are where you get leaks. And I've not been able to find something that doesn't. I'm sure there's something out there, but I've had problems with all of it. So I'm trying to share with you guys what I can. You're always welcome to, throw out suggestions, which that was good. We got something backwards.
I may be able to flip it in the replay when I upload.
She's going to do a replay on it, so you can go back on it and you can refer to it whenever you get ready to do your own roofing. So we'll see if we can fix that for sure by the next time. So next we're going to be on conventional homes and double wide mobile homes. They're sort of similar. The double wide is very similar. It has its own unique problems, and I'll go over with that. And if you guys have any questions, that's what this whole thing is. An ask me anything. I can stop in the middle of this and talk about what I was doing today, installing a sink in a countertop, brand new countertop.
We just come in with a particular topic.
I'm providing the topic. I want to share with you guys what I've learned, what I've experienced, and you can ask questions of me, and I'll be happy to share with you what I have experienced. I'm not saying that it's 100% right. There's always more than one way to do a job. I'm just going to tell you what I do, and maybe I'll learn from something that you suggest, that you do. But I'll be happy to discuss any subject. That's what I'm here for on Thursdays at 10 p.m. Central Time. So, guys, we'll see you next Thursday where I start talking about a double-wide mobile home and a conventional home or even a metal building, how to estimate that. A lot of tips that I picked up along the way. Hopefully, I won't forget too much. But again, when I stop making mistakes, I'll be dead. I'll catch you guys next Thursday. See you then. Bring your questions with you. We'll talk about them.